The Killing Sea, Chapter 8. The giant tree that held the Dreamcatcher grew beside one of the hill's rocky outcrops. Sarah circled the base of the tree, trying to find a way to climb it. She saw that the earthquake had toppled a much smaller tree from high on the outcrop. The top of the smaller tree had caught in the bigger one. She hiked up the outcrop, Peter behind her. She studied the fallen tree's horizontal trunk, which looked stout and sturdy enough, a bridge to the Dreamcatcher. She took a step onto it and then froze. All the open air around her, the long drop, no way she could cross it. She retreated and put a hand on Peter's shoulder. "You do it. Try to radio for help, and get some food and water." He frowned. "Come on, Peter, please. You know I'm scared of heights, and Dad might be on board." The frown vanished. "Here, take Surf Cat." He inched across the trunk and yelled out, "Dad! Dad!" There was no answer, only the flapping of the clothes in the breeze. He swung aboard over the stern railing. Sarah cupped a hand to her mouth. "Get those clothes!" He yanked them off the line and threw them over the side. He also tossed a flat piece of paper and disappeared into the cabin. Slow seconds passed. She was just about to call out to Peter when she heard his muffled shout. "Dad isn't here, and the radio's all wrecked." With a grinding of fiberglass, the boat tilted forward. Water poured out of the front cabin's hatch. "Peter!" she screamed. The swiveling keel snagged a branch no bigger than her arm, stopping the boat's forward slide. The Dreamcatcher tottered at a 45-degree angle. Peter bolted up onto the deck and over the stern railing. "Phew," he said when he reached her side. "That was close." He coughed and gave her an aggrieved look. And Dad wasn't there. The pockets of his filthy shorts bulged. "What do you have there?" she asked. He pulled out a can of cat food. "God, Peter, of all things, cat food?" "Surf Cat's gonna need food too," he snapped back. From his other pocket, he pulled out 2 cans of tuna. "There. Happy?" She rubbed his dirty hair. "Sorry. Let's go get those clothes." The paper that Peter had tossed was the last nautical chart their father had used, which had been clipped next to the helm. A pencil line traced the route the Dreamcatcher had taken to the bay's anchorage. The pencil line tracked past a small black square on the map that marked the village on the other side of the island. Sarah vaguely recalled the village as a bunch of tin-roofed houses on stilts. "I thought we'd need that," Peter said. "Smart boy. Good thinking." Peter held up a sealed bottle of drinking water, which had washed out of the front hatch. "Hey, look." "Give that to me," Sarah said, but Peter darted away. He opened the seal and cap with his teeth and gulped with his lips wrapped around the top. "Peter Bedford, you better save me some." He lowered the bottle and eyed the remaining half. After pouring out a handful into his palm for Surf Cat, he handed the bottle to her. The tepid water was the most delicious thing she had ever drunk in her life. She sipped the last drop with reverence. Some of the clothes he tossed had fallen into the mud, but the rest had fallen onto rock. Sarah put on a pair of khaki shorts over her bikini bottoms and changed her dirty t-shirt for a plain blue t-shirt, still smelling sweetly of detergent. Peter shucked off his shorts and put on blue jeans. A plastic object beside a bush caught Sarah's eye. One of the stove's gas lighters with a long blue handle. She clicked the trigger. To her delight, blue flame hissed out. They'd be able to make a fire. She glanced at the sun, lower yet to the horizon. Peter followed her gaze. "You better find Dad before night." They didn't. With sunset on bread broil, they stumbled across a ravine cut by a small stream, the same ravine where she'd seen the elephants. The standing water in the stream bed was brackish from the tsunami. Sarah followed it a little ways uphill and came to a mossy face of rock that would have been a gushing waterfall after rain, but was presently a trickle disappearing into pebbles. She tasted the water, fresh. To one side of the stream bed, a big slab of rock tilted at an angle against a rock wall, forming an angular cave. A broad trail wound from the cave into the jungle. A well-used path, now partially covered with tsunami debris. Sarah peered into the cave, about 10 feet deep, 5 feet wide. Flat, sandy floor. Looked safe enough. Cozy even. "We'll spend the night here and keep looking in the morning." She had brought the plastic bottle with her. Using a broad-rolled leaf to funnel the trickle of water, she filled the bottle. She and Peter drank, too thirsty to worry about germs. She refilled the bottle several times to pour the water over her head, scrubbing her hair. Slow, but wonderful. She rinsed out Peter's hair for him as well, sand and dirt and dead ants flaking off his scalp. Everything around was too wet from the tsunami to make a fire, and she didn't want to climb higher to find dry wood. Surprisingly, she was hungry. After the day's horrible events, she thought she would have no appetite at all. Her stomach was growling, though. There were the 2 cans of tuna. God, plain tuna never sounded so delicious. One little problem, though. She burst out laughing. "What's so funny?" Peter said. He sat cross-legged on the cave floor, leaning against the rock. Surf Cat was curled on his lap. She held up a can. "Canned tuna fish was one of the modern world's staple foods," she intoned, mimicking one of her most boring teachers. Of course, a necessary ingredient of this staple food is the can opener. Peter shook his head. I'm not hungry anyway, and Surf Cat just ate a dead fish. Without warning, his face crumpled and he began to cry. Mom, he sobbed. Mom, I want Mom. The image of her dead mother in the fishing net came to Sarah's mind. She waited for the pain of her grief to come smashing through. Nothing. Maybe she was still too much in a state of shock to feel any grief. But she was no longer hungry, that was for sure. She put an arm around her brother. He wept into her t-shirt, coughing and sobbing. She let him cry for a minute and then said, Think of Dad. Think of how strong he is. It's okay to cry for Mom, but remember, we have to get through this. Let's be as strong as Dad. Peter's crying eased to a few sniffles and wheezes. Twilight thickened into night. Better try to get some sleep, little guy. Peter lay down on his side, his head on a pile of moss that Sarah had gathered for him. He cradled Surf Cat to his chest and shut his eyes. Sarah used her sandals for a pillow. She was sore from feet to neck. What didn't ache itched. The rising moon coated the ragged jungle and lonely stream bed with silver light. Insects chirped and buzzed, all those scuttling feet and clacking jaws. It occurred to her that this was the first night of her life without electricity of any kind, not even a flashlight. A bug crawled up her leg. She slapped it away with a shiver. She thought of her father. Where was he? How was he spending the night? She stood and slipped into her sandals, peering out to the nightscape. The fallen trees and torn branches floating in the bay looked like mutant creatures. Peter coughed again. He's going to need a doctor. Her father's voice was taut with urgency. He spoke so distinctly she jerked her head around. Dad? That path should take you to the village. But what about you? Take care of Peter first. He's getting sick and needs a doctor. Go. She shook Peter's shoulder. His skin felt hot, hotter than it would be just from the sun. Sarah expected him to protest about leaving their father, but he said nothing. In the bright moonlight, they made their way around several fallen logs. They climbed over the last one. Before them stretched a clear path, the jungle pressing closer on either side. Sarah paused, her heart beating hard. Tsunami or not, jungle creatures were still searching for prey to eat. Sarah wanted to retreat to the relative safety of the cave, but she clicked the gas lighter. Waving the blue flame in warning, she started down the path, holding her brother's hand.